So as usual, this session will be recorded for future reference. And also, if you need to refer back to what we have discussed in the class, okay? Right. So right now, today is on the 29th of November 2021. Okay. First thing first, I'm going to check the attendance for today. Right. Once I call upon your name, please answer yes when I again call upon your name. Okay. Right. So we are going to start with the Sophie, the person named Sophie Patricia. Are you here? Sophie Patricia, are you here? Not here yet. Okay. Nick Ahmad Fadli. Nick Ahmad Fadli, you are not here yet as well.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Nick Ahmad Fadli, you are here. Okay. Muhammad Mirza Rushaidi, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ahmad Amali.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Muhammad Zulhilmi.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Muhammad Zulhilmi is here. Abdul Rashid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Peggy is no longer here. Okay. Muhammad Shahrul.
I'm here, sir.
Alright. Let me take the pen first. Alright. Muhammad Lukman Hakim. Muhammad Lukman Hakim bin
Yes,
Nur.
sir.
Alright. Okay. Muhammad Amza bin Rizwan. Muhammad Amza bin Rizwan. Okay. Not here yet. Number 1 and number 10. Muhammad Amar Rafiq. Muhammad Amar Rafiq. Okay. Not here yet as well. Shamir Rais. Shamir Rais. Okay. Izzat Haikal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Muhammad Haris Azib.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tina Garan. Tina Garan is not here. Alida.
Yes, dia pergi toilet.
Alright. Okay. Muhammad Izzat Ishraf bin Ishaq.
Me, sir.
Alright. Muhammad Adnan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Muhammad Atif.
Yes, sir.
Right. Datu Hanif Dihaizat.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Muhammad Harith.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Abdul Rashid bin Mat Desa. Abdul
Yes,
Rashid, are
sir.
you here?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Alright. Muhammad Zunur Rashid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Muhammad Azrul bin Adan. Muhammad Azrul. Not here yet. Okay. Muhammad Zulhilmi bin Muhammad
Yes,
Hanafiah.
sir.
Okay. Abang Syafaat Akmal. Abang Syafaat Akmal. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. Sofian Akimi.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Raja Anwar Muiz.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pavi Tardib.
I'm here, sir.
Alright. Muhammad Irfan Naim.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great. Right. So how was your holiday?
Yeah.
Class, how was your holiday?
Good.
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 Good. Good, sir. Not good.
Not good. Okay.
So, sir.
All right. So, okay, Azrul having problem. Let me check the name. Azrul, number 24. Azrul, okay. So you are here. Right, Azrul, I take note on that thing. Okay. All right. So we have to start back with our lesson for today. And as I have shared with you last night, okay, our no worries, okay, Alida, no worries, all right. So our latest weekly planner, Okay, so I'm going to share my weekly planner, the weekly planner or the latest weekly planner with you again so that you can know or you can see back what you are supposed to do for this week. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this is the latest weekly planner, right? I have given it to you last night. Okay, so we are now in week 7. Okay, we are now in week 7 and we are entering a new topic which is on process and procedure. Okay, process and procedure. So today we are going to have a look at the introduction to SOP. Okay, whereby we are going to look at the definition first, what types of SOP that you're going to use or learn for UHL 2452 English for vocational purposes, and what will be the format of the technical SOP. Okay, and as what have been taught previously, so we are using memorandum format. Okay, memorandum format, but I will go into detail about it once we look at the slides. Okay, so you can go to Kalam, right? You can go to Kalam. As you can see on the screen now, log into Kalam, go to week 7, okay? Module 2, process and procedure. So I have asked you to watch this short video. Why do we need SOP here?
Coffee burns £46 in 2
Okay,
weeks.
all
If
right.
you're over 25
So you
and
can
struggling
watch
with
the
weight,
video on your own, okay? So why do we need SOP? It is clearly stated there. Okay, it is not a hint anymore. Okay, so then you can download this file, standard operating procedure. Okay, standard operating procedure, and it will bring you to this particular detail. And please download this as well. Okay, standard operating procedure, the PowerPoint file. Okay, so you have to download and open 2 files today. Number 1 is going to be the Word file for standard operating procedure, and number 2 is going to be the standard operating procedure PowerPoint file. Okay, these are the things that we are going to use for the class today. Okay, right. So let's have a look at the slides first. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to share my screen over here. Okay. Can you see my screen? Standard operating procedure, the slide.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So this is what we are going to have a look at today. So our biggest concern is going to be on SOP. Okay, so we're going to look at SOP, and I believe that this is no longer something unusual for us because we have been listening to SOP since 2019 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so but actually for UHL 2452, okay, our biggest concern is on UHL 2452. So we're going to look at what will be the SOP for us. Okay. All right. So you have watched the video, perhaps. Okay, and then after you have watched the video, you need to look or answer the question on your own. Okay, the importance of having SOP. Why do we need to have SOP? Okay, so if we are planning to use something or if we are planning to repair something, normally we are going to refer to SOP. Okay, normally we're going to refer to SOP. So SOP is going to be a guide. Okay, why? Because it is a guide for us. All right, it is going to be a guide for us. All right, so the importance of having SOP to make sure that what we are going to perform will be what is it about, class? Class, if we follow or if we have the SOP, what will happen?
Reach to avoid injured.
Okay. All right. Let's say if you are talking about injuries at the workplace, for example, or if you want to make sure that the work that you are performing can be conducted perfectly, so you need to follow the SOP. Okay. All right. Number two, what is or what are the best way or ways to follow a certain procedure? Okay. So what will be the best way to follow a certain procedure? Okay, so there are three types of SOP actually that we are going to learn for UHL2452. Okay, and we are going to have a look at each one of it later on today. Okay, and then what needs to be in an SOP and why? Okay, in an SOP, what do you need to have? Okay, do you need to have pictures? Okay, do you need to have instruction? What else do you need to have? Okay, so and why do we need that kind of information? So I believe nowadays, okay, it will be easier if we have pictures plus instructions, so that okay, you can see clearly what does it mean by certain procedure or steps. Okay, right, let's move on to the next slide. So what is SOP? So SOP is actually a document, okay, which describes the operations of a certain work or job in order to ensure its quality. So it is a document. What is it about? It describes the operations, okay, all right, for certain work or job to ensure the quality. So our main target to make sure that, okay, this is going to be our main target. The quality can be achieved by following, okay, the SOP that describes the operation. So there will be like steps, I can say among it, okay, it will be like steps that you have to follow. So it's going to be like number one, up until the end part. Okay, all right. So it is also a set of compulsory instructions, okay, or systems, or procedures, or steps, okay, which is written. Remember, it must be written. Okay, this is a must. Okay, and so that other individuals can follow to complete the job safely. Okay, so I believe that you are familiar with SOP and why it is written, because we want other people, okay, over here we want other people to be able to perform the same task by following the given SOP. Okay, and of course we are talking about safety over here to avoid injuries. Okay, all right. Besides that, it is also to maximize, okay, operational and production requirements. Okay, because if we have the SOP, all right, of course the task is going to be simpler. Okay, the task is going to be simpler, and then apart from that, okay, we can avoid any mistakes. Okay, so let's say if we didn't follow SOP and then we just do or perform the task, and there is a possibility that there will be a mistake. Okay, in work, all right, in performing a task, if we perform or if we had a mistake, okay, there is a possibility that it will incur some cost. Okay, because if you are talking about this, right, we are also talking about cost. Okay, which is ringgit Malaysia or maybe US dollar. Okay, so we want to avoid this kind of thing to happen. Right. So the purpose of a SOP is to carry out the operations, okay, to perform the task correctly. Okay, this is going to be our main target, and always in the same manner. Okay, so let's say if you're working in a factory, okay, if you're working in a factory and then you want to perform the same line of production, so you need to follow the SOP so that it will happen again and again and again. So continuously in a safe manner. Okay, so that is about SOP. Okay, a SOP should be available, okay, should be available at the place where the work is performed. So number one, you need to make sure that it is at the workplace. Okay, it is supposed to be at the workplace. Right? The original copy should be kept at a secured place, while working copies should be authenticated with stamps and or signatures of authorized person. So you can have two set of SOP. Okay, two set of SOP. Number one, you keep it in the office, for example, okay, or the admin office. Number two is going to be at the working site. All right. Okay. And then the one at the working site, make sure that it is authenticated. Okay. Authenticated here meaning that it is verified. All right. It is verified with stamps. What is stamps, class? Can you tell me what is stamps?
Chop, maybe.
Yeah. In Malay, we normally call it as chop. Sir, can I have your chop, sir? Okay. All right. In English, it is not chop. Okay. Because if you're asking me, sir, can you chop this paper? You are asking me to cut the paper. Okay. Chop, it is not correct in English word or context. Okay. So this is not the right word to use. You need to use the word stamp. Okay. And together, all right, you can also have or without the signatures of the authorized person. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the example of it later on. So the one that you use at the working site must consist of the stamping with or without the signature of the authorized person. Okay, all right. So it must be verified, meaning that that is the copied version from the original version. Okay, right, and then you put it at the workplace so that the others can refer to it as well. Okay, there are two types of SOP. Number one, it is technical SOP. Number two, it is administrative SOP. So let's have a look at this one first. Okay, administrative SOP. So it highlights on the administrative processes such as reviewing contract, documentation, and determining organizational training needs. Okay, so you are actually looking more at the administrative processes. Okay, so this is going to be the highlight of it. Okay, but since that you are engineering students, okay, technical students, so this is our main focus. Technical SOP. So it focuses more on technical activities such as how to collect a laboratory sample and how to fix the R2 engine. Okay, so these are some examples. Okay, all right. These are some examples. Okay, technical activities. So for UHL2452, we are going to look at technical SOP. Okay, we are not going to look at administrative SOP. So there are two types of it. Okay, remember, there are two types of it. Okay, the format of technical SOP, the format and length of SOP depend on the steps that are taken to describe the procedures of the work. So it can be one page up to several pages. Okay, it can be from one page up to several pages, depending on the steps that you need to perform the task. Okay, all right. It can include a simple one-page hierarchical steps. Okay, hierarchical meaning that you have step number 1, step number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. Okay, that is hierarchical meaning that you follow starting from the top up to the bottom. Okay, that is hierarchical. Graphic procedures. Okay, graphic procedures meaning that you have the image such as flowchart and even a few pages of procedural process. Okay, flowchart meaning that, okay, let's say you start from this part, Okay, then you have the arrow. Okay, this is the task, for example. Okay, then you move to the next thing. Okay, and then the end product, for example. Okay, so you can have images like flowcharts. You can also have graphic operating procedure. Okay, we can have a look at it afterwards. So basically, there are two types of it. Okay, one is administrative SOP. The second one is the technical SOP, which we are focusing on. Okay, and then there are three examples of technical SOP. Number one is hierarchical SOP. Number two is going to be graphical SOP. And then the next one is going to be discussed later on. Okay, right. There are three types of it as well. Right. So an organization will have its own format of SOP. Okay, so the one that we are teaching you now is basically the general types of SOP, but the content or how are you going to organize the information in the SOP should be the same. Okay, all right. So just to share with you, we had a discussion with the people from the industries before. Okay, one of the representative comes from Mercedes-Benz Pekan. Okay, all right. So they shared with us the SOP being used at the workplace. Okay, so I'm not going to show it to you, but this is just for you to listen and understand. Okay, so they have their own template. Okay, different organization here, they will have their own template. All right, and then because of that thing, okay, if you're working at company A or company B or company C, the template of the SOP will be different, but the contents will be the same. Okay, what are you supposed to put in the SOP will be the same. So that is our task for this particular topic, standard operating procedure or process and procedure, because we're going to share what you need to put in each part of the SOP. Okay, so though that the template will be different later on once you start working, but the contents will be the same. Okay, all right. So SOP can be written by individuals. Okay, it can be more than one person. Okay, or a team performing processes such as shutting down an operation. So this is example number one. If you want to shut down the plant, what do you need to do? Okay, repairing a faulty electrical circuit. All right, so what are the steps that you need to take before you start repairing the electrical circuit? Basic milking process. Okay, so if you have like cows, okay, if you have a farm, all right, and then you're going to milk the cow, so you have the processes that you need to follow. And then building a new machine. Okay, building a new machine. So here are some examples, but of course you can have varieties of SOP. Okay, so who should write SOP? People who will perform or has performed the job. Okay, let's say if you are new at the workplace and there is no specific SOP yet being created, so you are the first person performing the task, then you are going to create the SOP. Okay, all right. Or if you have started working at a particular company, you can ask for the standard SOP so that you can follow it to perform the task. If there is none, then you are going to create one. Okay, all right. It can also be written by people who work together on a job. Okay, so or anybody related with the task. For example, the engineers, technicians, maintenance or equipment personnel. So if you are working in a team, all right, you're going to perform the task. So any one of you or all of you in the team can create the SOP. All right. Okay, next. If you are going to supervise other people doing the job, then you may need the SOP so that you will see whether method A is applicable, method B is applicable, or method C is applicable. Okay, so you are going to supervise and you're going to have the SOP so that you can see which method is applicable. Okay, which method is applicable and what will be the standard operating procedure later on. Okay, all right. So it can also be written by safety and health officer. Okay, OSH, occupational safety and health. Okay, or it can also be written by technical writers. So technical writers here, let's say if you buy a product, then it comes together with a manual on how to operate the product. Okay, or maybe a manual on how to troubleshoot the problem. Okay, so that is about technical writers and who should be writing the SOP. Okay, SOP is useful for the person who will perform a particular job, such as managers, engineers, planners, safety officers, environmental regulators, company representatives, and anybody performing the work. Okay, so we know about managers so that they will know on how to manage things. Okay, managing works. This is about managing work. All right, engineers and planners, we know what will be, okay, on how to perform the task. All right. Safety officers or environmental regulators, it means that, okay, so let's say you want to check whether the safety procedures have been followed, okay, or acquired. So you are going to look at the SOP. So by the SOP, by looking at the SOP, if you are the safety officer, you will see that whether they compel to the safety regulations or not. For environmental regulators, let's say if you're working at a plant and then there are certain you are dealing with waste disposal, for example, okay, waste disposal. So they want to check whether you have followed the correct procedure or not. They are going to look at the SOP. Okay, they are going to look at the SOP. Right? Okay, so this is for whom the SOP is meant for. Okay, when to write and test SOP. So you need to write and you need to test it before a job is begun. Okay, so let's say if you are the one creating the SOP, so you need to write and you need to test it before the job is begun. Okay, so let's say if there is no SOP yet, so you need to write it and test it before the job is begun. Okay, all right, you need to test it before putting it into final application. Why? Because when you run the process, okay, there may be method A, method B, or method C, for example. Okay, and from these three methods, which one will be the most suitable, okay, or the most effective? Okay, all right. So after you have performed the task, okay, using the three methods over here, A, B, or C, and then you look at the effectiveness for each of the method, then you need to revise it. Okay, so you need to revise it after the trial of the job is performed. Okay, so then you decide which one is going to be the most effective method and which one is going to be the most suitable SOP that you're going to use at the workplace. Okay, you need to also revise it when there is any change to the process or even equipment used. Okay, so maybe you have been using the SOP, and in the SOP created, okay, it is meant for machine A, for example. And then suddenly, after 5 years, okay, the company decided to buy a new machine. Okay, so machine B, for instance. Okay, for example. All right, and because of the changes over here, there will be some changes in the SOP as well. So you need to change the SOP. Okay, maybe the steps will be shorter compared to the one you had, okay, when you are using machine A. So machine B, maybe the steps are shorter. Okay, you need to rewrite it. Okay, rewrite it meaning that you already have the SOP, but you need to write it back, okay, when the new information indicates new process. So let's say if you follow this method, somehow it brings you to different process, not the previous one. So then you need to rewrite it, okay? Or you need to rewrite it, okay, when new information suggests new performance. So if you use method A, for example here, it brings you to this outcome. Okay, outcome number 1. If you use method B, it will bring you to method or outcome number 2, for instance. So you need to write it back, okay? And you need to update it regularly based on internal and external factors. Okay, internal maybe changes in the company or the institution. External factors, okay, maybe you are talking about environmental pollution. So let's say if you choose this method, okay, this SOP to perform the task, somehow it does not compel to the environmental pollution regulation, then you have to update the SOP. Okay, you have to change it. All right? Okay, effective writing for SOP. Okay, number 1, use short sentences. Okay, so long sentences are harder to understand. Okay, that's why it is not applicable and tend to include more than one step. So you need to use several short sentences that will be easier to understand. Okay, use short sentences. Do not forget to use imperative, okay? Because in imperative, it is going to be command, okay, or instructions. All right? So you have done this in the first assessment, okay? So imperatives will be better because you are asking the people performing the task to just straight away do it, okay? Or commanding the people to do it. So place the paper on the conveyor, for example, straight away. So use imperative. Okay, so this is an example of a passive sentence, and this is an example of imperative sentence. So you can see over here, the weight of feed refusals should be recorded in the feeder notebook. So it is a bit lengthy. Okay, then when you move to imperative, record, so this is a verb or action verb, kata kerja, okay, the weight of feed refusals in the feeder notebook straight away. So this is more straightforward. Okay, all right. Okay, make sure that the SOP is concise. Concise here meaning that it is accurate. So write in a few words as possible. Use short, direct sentences so that readers can quickly understand and memorize the step. So step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. So make sure it is concise, okay, accurate. And this is some example of the SOP that you can look at later. Okay, all right. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. Any question, class?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Any question? No question, okay? All right. So if you don't have question, let's have a look at the second content that we have in column, which is the word file. Okay, I am now sharing my screen with you. Okay. All right. So this is the file on standard operating procedure, but it is in the Microsoft Word form. Okay. All right. So let's have a look at activity 4.1. Okay, just a quick question. You recently bought a flashing emergency light. You need to assemble its electrical components. So what do you do? Okay, are you referring to the manual here? Or do you use your own experience or logic? So maybe if you're good at the procedure, then you can just perform the task. But for example, if it is me, I don't have any electrical background of knowledge, then perhaps I will refer to the manual or the SOP so that I can assemble its electrical components. Okay, right. So we have talked about the input on SOP, standard operating procedure here, the definition. Okay, you can read this on your own. And plus, I have also explained about this in our previous slides. Okay. All right. So this is what you are going to have for your next assessment, assessment 2. Okay. The sample format of a technical SOP. Okay. All right. So for assessment 2, you need to have this, or you need to follow the format, because the format is very important. But again, in the future, when you're going to start working later on, maybe the company that you are working with will have their own template. Okay, but what we are teaching you now is to make sure that you arrange the information correctly, and then the contents will be the same, even though that later on when you, let's say, work with Mercedes-Benz, they have their own SOP template. Okay, so number one, you need to have the reference number, the date, and the page number. So this is a must. Okay, so depending on the question paper later on that you're going to have for assessment 2, for the reference number here will be stated there. Okay, for example, if you look at the question paper and it is stated there what is the reference number, then you are going to use it. If it is not given in the question paper, then you can just create it. Okay, and again, bear in your mind, this format, the information will be the same if you have more than one page of SOP. So this is page number 1. Let's say you have second page, third page, fourth page, and so on. Then the contents or the arrangement should be the same. Okay, what am I referring to is on the reference number, the date, and the page number here. Okay, so reference number will be the same on the second page, the third page, the fourth page, and the following pages. Okay, the date will also be the same. All right, so it depends on the date that you need to perform the task. Okay, so we are going to have a look at the sample later on. Then you can see how are you going to put the information here. Okay, all right, page number here will follow the pages that you are working on. Let's say this is page number 1. Okay, right, page number 1. And how many pages that you have? Okay, maybe you have 5 pages. Page number 1 of 5, for example. This is how you're supposed to write it. When you move on to the second page, it is going to be page number, class? Second page is going to be page number?
Number 2.
2.
Yes. Number 2 of 5. Yes.
2 of 5. Yeah.
Yes. When you go to the third page, it's going to be page number 3 of 5. Okay. Number 4 of 5. And then the last one is going to be page 5 of 5. Why? When you have this SOP later on, when you look at the page numbers, okay, then you will know, all right, oh, there are 5 pages altogether. So this is page number 1, followed by page number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. If one of the pages when missing, then you will know that the SOP is incomplete. Okay, all right. So that is the example of how you can write it. Number two, you need to have the title, standard operating procedure for, okay, replacing a punctured tire, for example. So that will be the title. Okay, because why? At the workplace, you will have different SOP for different tasks. So the title is also very important. Then you will have the name of the department or the unit that it is you are working with. Okay, so what is the purpose of having the SOP? Who can perform this SOP? Individuals, remember. Then we go to the next part, which is on equipment or tools needed. So over here, we are talking about the PPE, personal protective equipment, safety boot, for example, okay, safety goggle, all right, so you need to put it accordingly. What are the tools needed to perform the task? Maybe you need a hammer, a Phillips screwdriver, for example, then you need to write it here. Reference materials, it depends, okay? If you need to refer to certain manuals, then you need to state it here. What will be the name of the manual? Others, depending on the additional information. Okay? And then procedures here is going to be lengthy actually. The procedures are going to be a bit long. Okay, this is just an example. So maybe it will take you like 2 to 3 pages kind of SOP. Okay, who will be signing it? Prepared by. Okay, if you are the person preparing the SOP, then you need to put your signature, your name, and then name here plus your designation. What is designation? Class, what is designation?
Tak tahu. Don't know, sir.
Beg your pardon again. What is designation?
Jawatan.
Yes, the title of your job. Okay, so designation here may be the technician, for example. Okay? All right. Reviewed by, okay, the name and then plus the designation. Okay, right, maybe the designation is senior technician. Okay, for example. Approved by, okay, approved by here plus the designation, maybe supervisor, for example. All right, so this is how you can arrange the information for the SOP. So how to write it? Okay, how to write a technical SOP, you can refer to the information over here. The name for the title, okay, and we have the exercises here. You can do this on your own, okay. Right, this is on department or unit, how to write it, okay. The SOP has been written for the research and development laboratory. So the question paper later on for your assessment 2 will state what kind of information that you need to put in the SOP, in the template, okay, the template given here. All right, so the content might be different. Okay, this is for number 4. What is the purpose? So there are 3 parts of to the purpose of the SOP. Number 1, the aim or the function of the SOP, the specific audience, and the regulatory standards or the safety measure. So example here, the purpose of this SOP is to provide instructions for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. So this is the aim or the function of the SOP. This is very important. You need to have this. Okay, all right, the specific audience. Okay, why we need this? To prevent spills, harmful vapors, and injury to the worker. So the worker here is the specific audience, or maybe to the laboratory staff, okay, and environment, okay. All right, so you can have this kind of information for the purpose. Okay, you can do this activity later on. Right, the person who can perform the job, all right, you can refer to the examples given later, all right. PPE tools and reference materials, okay, any sort, okay. PPE shouldn't be a problem. Tools shouldn't be a problem because you know what do you need to fill in. But for reference materials over here, any sort of reading or reference materials that can be suggested or that has been referred to when the SOP was written. So in the question paper later on, maybe it will state some other references that you can use to write the SOP. Then you are going to write it under reference materials. Okay, this is the activity. All right, this is on the procedure. Okay, this is on the procedure. So there are three kinds of format that can be used to write a procedure. Number one is flowchart operating procedure, graphic operating procedure, and hierarchical operating procedure. Okay, so if you look at Kalam, there are some examples given here. Right. Next, person in charge. Okay, the person who prepared the SOP. So this is the one who wrote the SOP. All right. And then the person who reviewed the SOP and the person who will be approving the SOP. Okay. So this is the flowchart operating procedure. Okay. So the simple guide here, if you are referring to this is the terminator, start and stop points. Okay, start over here, and then you scroll down to the bottom, this is the end. Okay, so this is going to be the beginning and the end of it. If you are using this shape, it is actually the terminator. Right, the rectangle over here, it is going to be the process. Okay, this one over here. Hit the engine for 5 minutes. So this is the process. Okay, and then if you are looking at this diamond shape, okay, over here, it is actually on the decision. Okay, so are there any problematic sounds? Okay, this is the decision part. If yes, then what do you need to do? If no, then you can proceed to the next step. Okay. So this is an example of SOP using the flowchart operating procedure format. So you can see the reference number, okay, the date, and the page number, right? So you can see the example. Okay, so this is on the second type of it, which is on graphic operating procedure format. So it should be arranged like this, from left to the right. Okay, and then under each part of it, let's say before alignment, you will have the process or the procedures. Okay, and then at the bottom of the process or the procedure, you're going to have the images or the pictures that will explain more about it. Okay, right. For example, a shear lap is secured, okay, before alignment, step number 1 here. Step number 2, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. So what is the notice sign? So this is the notice sign. Laser alignment in progress. Do not enter eye protection required. Okay, so this is on graphic operating procedure. Next, hierarchical operating procedure format, as I have mentioned to you earlier. So there are steps that you need to do to perform the task, or you need to follow to perform the task. So this is step number 1, step number 2, and the rest until the final step. Okay, so this is SOP with hierarchical step format. This is how you are going to write it. So you can look at the examples given here on your own. And then we have some activities as well here that you can do it. Okay, the same goes with activity 4.8. Okay, all right. For for your information, for assessment 2, there will be 2 parts of it. One is on writing, the other one is on listening. So you need to read the tips for listening over here as well. Okay, there are 10 points that you can refer to for the listening, and then we are going to do the exercises later on. Okay, maybe in our second meeting for the asynchronous class afterwards. Okay, all right, any question, class? Class, do you have any question?
So far, no, sir.
Okay, all right. I'm going to check back the attendance. Sophie Patricia, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sophie Patricia, you are here. All right, Muhammad Amza bin Rizwan, are you here? Amza bin Rizwan, you are not here. Muhammad Amar Rafiq.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Amar Rafiq, you are here. Okay, Shamir Rais, are you here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Tina Garan, are you here? Tina Garan is not here as well. All right. Okay. So if there is no question, right, you can continue or proceed reading the materials given, okay, in Kalam, all right. And then if you have any question to ask regarding the SOP, we are going to feel free to ask me in the Telegram group. Okay, I will respond to it as soon as possible. And inshallah, your marks, okay, you can view the marks within this week. Okay, I have marked all of the assessment, and then I have what do you call it? I'm going to key in the marks in the system. Then you can look at the marks later on for your assessment 1. Okay, all right. So I believe that's all from me. I'm going to stop the recording now. So if you have any question,